Welcome, students, to your history class. I hope you all are doing great. We are in the fourth chapter, the Central Islamic Lands. We were studying about the Umayyads, last time, and the centralization of the politics. So we'll continue from there. Last class, you all have seen that how the Umayyad Empire grew and how there were four caliphs. We also saw about the first caliph, that is Muawiyah, who moved the capital to Damascus, and he adopted the court ceremonies and administration institutions of Byzantine Empire. This is the Umayyad Empire. This is Damascus, that is present-day Syria. So what all changes were introduced by Umayyad? So Muawiyah, that is also the first caliph of Umayyad, he introduced the hereditary succession and he persuaded the leading Muslims to accept his own son as heir here. Although there were Christian advisors in the administration and Zoroastrian bureaucrats, and there were also scribes, it was Islam that provided legitimacy to their rule. Okay, so that means he introduced hierarchy. So in the Umayyad state, the imperial power was not based directly on Islam, but on statecraft. They appealed for unity and they suppressed the rebellions in the name of Islam. So the Umayyads always appealed for unity. The people in the Umayyad, they kept appealing for unity, but the rebels were suppressed in the name of Islam. They also retained their Arab social identity when they were suppressed, and during the reign of Abd al-Malik and his successors, Arab and Islamic identities, they were strongly emphasized upon. Okay. So among the various measures that Abdul Malik took, adoption of Arabic as the language and introduction of Islamic coinage was the most important. The two major changes that he did were adapting Arabic as the language of administration, and he also introduced Islamic coinage. Coins are on the base of Islam. The gold dinar and the silver dirham that had been circulating in the caliphate, they were the copies of Byzantine and Iranian coins. So up till now, there was dinar and dirham, and these were copies of the Byzantine and the Iranian coins. And there were symbols of cross and fire altars on them. Okay, and it had inscriptions in Greek and Pahlavi language. This was before. Now what happened is these symbols were removed and the coins started carrying Arabic inscriptions. Abd al-Malik, he also made a very visible contribution to the development of Arab Islamic identity by building the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. He built the Dome of Rock in Jerusalem. The Dome of Rock, built over a rocky mount by Abd al-Malik, this is the earliest major work of Islamic architecture. It was created as a monument to the Muslim presence in the city of Jerusalem, and it acquired a mystical association connected with the night journey of the Prophet to Ahmad. It acquired a mystical association connected with the night journey of the Prophet to heaven. Okay, before we do this, just give me a. Let's talk about the coinage. Like I told you, he introduced the coinage. The three coin specimens, this and these, and there are three coins in your textbook. Okay, they show the transition from Byzantine to Arab Islamic coinage. Okay, on one of these coins, I don't know if I have it. Okay, it's not. Just give me. Yeah, these are the three coins I'm talking about. So in these three coins, they show the transition from Byzantine to the Arab Islamic coinage. On the second coin, you can see the bearded and long-haired caliph. He's dressed in traditional Arab clothes and he's holding a sword. It is the first extant portrait of a Muslim. It is also unique because later they developed an antipathy towards the representation of living beings in art and craft. Later on, it wasn't considered good. They created there was an antipathy created against it. Abd al-Malik's reform of coinage was linked with the reorganization of state finances. It proved so successful that for hundreds of years, coins were stuck according to the pattern and weight of the third specimen. So the first one is a Byzantine coin solidus. It shows the Emperor Heraclius and his two sons. The second one is a gold dinar, and it is struck by Abd Malik with his name and his image. The third one is a reformed dinar, and it was purely epigraphic, and it carries the kalima, there is no God but Allah, and He has no partner. This was inscribed on it. Okay. Now let's look at the difference between Islamic coins and that was circulating in Caliphate. Before the introduction of Islamic coins, the gold dinar and the silver dirham were in circulation in the Caliphate. These were the copies of Byzantine and Iranian coin. They had symbols of crosses and fire altars, and they had inscription in the language Greek and Pahlavi. Abdul Malik and his successors removed these symbols and they introduced coins with Arabic inscription. Okay, now we come to the next topic for the day, Abbasid revolution. For the success in centralizing the Muslim politics, the Umayyads had to pay a very heavy price. A well-organized movement called Dawa brought down the Umayyads and replaced them with another family of the Meccan origin, the Abbasids. In 750, the Abbasids portrayed the Umayyad regime as evil and they promised a restoration of the original Islam of the Prophet. So they said that Umayyads were pure evil and we will take you back to the original religion of Prophet, that was Islam. The revolution led not only to a change in dynasty, but changes in the political structure as well as the culture of Islam. So these led to a lot of changes. The Abbasid upbringing broke out in the distant region of Khorasan, which is a 20-day journey from Damascus on a very fast horse. Khorasan has a mixed Arab-Iranian population and it could be mobilized for maybe many reasons. The Arab soldiers were mostly from Iraq and they resented the dominance of the Syrians. The civilian Arabs of Khorasan, they did not like the Umayyad regime for having made taxes, for having made promises of tax concessions and privileges which were never fulfilled. So the people in Khorasan already did not like Umayyad Empire. As for the Iranian Muslims, they were exposed to scorn of the race-conscious Arabs, and so they were also ready to join any campaign that could rid them of the Umayyads. The army that was led by an Iranian slave, Abu Muslim, he was defeated by the last Umayyad Caliph, Marwan, in the battle at the river Zab. Okay, so these were the reasons. I again will read out the reasons. Basically, the the Abbasid, they were developed, the upbringing was developed in a region called Khurasan, which is a 20-day journey from Damascus on a fast horse in those days. That means it was pretty far. Now, Khurasan has a mix of Arab as well as Iranian population. The Arab soldiers, they were mostly from Iraq, and they hated the dominance of the Syrians. And the civilian Arabs of Khurasan, they did not like the Umayyad regime because the Umayyad regime kept promising tax concessions and privileges, but they never fulfilled them. And the Iranian Muslims, they were also called as Mawali, they were always exposed to scorn, okay, because of the race conscious Arabs. So they were also ready to join any campaign that would bring them some relief from Umayyads. So now the Abbasids, that is the descendants of Abbas, the Prophet's uncle, he mustered the support of various different groups, and he legitimated their bid for power by promising a Messiah from the family of Prophet would liberate them from the oppression of the Umayyad regime. So what he did is he took their support by promising them that a Messiah, that's a Mahdi, from the family of Prophet, that is himself, would liberate them from the oppressive Umayyad regime. So this army was led by an Iranian slave, Abu Muslim, who he defeated the last Umayyad Caliph Marwan in the battle at the river Zab. Now, under the Abbasid rule, Arab influence declined and the importance of Iranian culture increased. So the Abbasids established their capital at Baghdad near the ruins of the ancient Iranian metropolis Stephisson. And the army and the bureaucracy were reorganized on a non-tribal basis to ensure greater participation by Iraq and Khorasan. So the army and bureaucracy were again organized, and this time not on the basis of religion. Okay? It was on a non-tribal basis. The Abbasid rulers strengthened the religion status and functions of the caliphate, and it patronized Islamic institutions and scholars. They were forced by the need of the government and empire to retain the centralized nature of the state. They were forced to retain the centralized nature of the state. They maintained the magnificent imperial architecture and the elaborate court ceremonies of the Umayyad. So they maintained that, they did not change this. The regime, which took pride in having brought down the monarchy, found itself compelled to establish it again. So, although they had a lot of pride in bringing down the Umayyad regime, they also had to establish the regime all over again. This is Baghdad. Looks beautiful, na? Harun al-Rashid. Who is he? He's the greatest caliph of the dynasty, and it is called the golden age of the Abbasid dynasty. He was known for his charity and was a great supporter of culture and arts. His son continued the tradition and he supported the study of astronomy and he began to translate classical Greek works to Arabic. So we will stop over here for today. Your homework will be to find pictures of all these people, Harun al-Rashid, all the four caliphates, uh, all the artifacts that we're talking about, the coinage, the Rock of Jerusalem, and stick it in your notebooks with a proper summary next to it. Not only a name, but at least 2 or 3 points about it. Okay, that will be your homework for today. So, with this, I end today's class. Stay home, stay safe, take care, and keep learning.